Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar sponsored by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the New Jersey Catholic Conference, and the Pennsylvania Catholic Conference. We are grateful for your participation and your commitment to learning more about an issue that affects communities across our nation and around the world. My name is James King. I serve as the Executive Director of the New Jersey Catholic Conference, and I am pleased to serve you as host for tonight's discussion on human trafficking and major sporting events. As we prepare for the start of the 2026 World Cup that will draw millions of visitors, athletes, media representatives, and support personnel to our region, it's important to understand both the opportunities and challenges these events can bring. While major sporting events like the World Cup can unite communities and inspire people around the world, they can also create conditions that increase vulnerabilities and opportunities for human trafficking and exploitation. Tonight's webinar will explore the realities of human trafficking, examine its connection to large-scale sporting events, and discuss how faith communities, law enforcement, service providers, advocates, legislators, and concerned citizens can work together to raise awareness, identify warning signs, support survivors, and help prevent exploitation. We are honored to have a distinguished panel of guests with us who will share their knowledge, experiences, and recommendations for action. Following their presentation, if we have time, we'll do a brief Q&A. We encourage you to engage throughout the webinar by submitting your questions to the Q&A feature here on Zoom. We'll do our best to address as many as time permits. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce my co-organizers for this event. First, Ms. Felicitas Burgo Onetti. She serves as the Anti-Trafficking Education and Outreach Coordinator in the Secretariat for Migration at the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Many of you probably are starting to recognize Felicitas as she has become a regular at various anti-trafficking events sponsored by the diocese in both New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank and welcome Mr. Eric Failing. Eric serves as the Executive Director for the PA Catholic Conference and has been a great partner to work with over the past few years to host these various webinars. It is a pleasure and honor to work with both Felicitas and Eric to bring these important webinars to you. Thank you again for being with us tonight and for your dedication to protecting the dignity of every human person. We look forward to a meaningful and informative conversation. And now it is my pleasure to turn this webinar over to Felicitas, who will lead us in our opening prayer and also provide our first session on a Human Trafficking 101. Felicitas, thank you.
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. And we are so glad to always be collaborating with the different state Catholic conferences. So I'll lead us in a quick prayer inspired by St. Josephine Bakhita, who is the patron saint of victims of trafficking. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. St. Josephine Bakhita, you were sold into slavery as a child and endured untold hardship and suffering. Once liberated from your physical enslavement, you found proper redemption in your encounter with Christ and his church. O Saint Bakhita, assist all those trapped in the state of slavery. Intercede with God on their behalf so that they will be released from their chains of captivity. Those whom man enslaves, let God set free. Provide comfort to survivors of slavery and let them look to you as an example of hope and faith. Help all survivors find healing from their wounds. We ask for your prayers and intercessions for those enslaved among us. Amen. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So I will share my screen here. Can you see this? Yeah? Okay, great. So, as James mentioned, my name is Felicitas Bruanetti. I oversee the anti-trafficking portfolio for the USCCB. So I'm going to give a quick 101, highlight a little bit more of the role of the Catholic Church on this issue, why this is important to us Catholics, and why we should find this to be a priority, and some elements of Catholic social teaching, and then I'll dive into some other kind of defining terms and whatnot. So when we think of the seven themes of Catholic social teaching, the issue that pertains to human trafficking really hits all of them, right? We have the dignity of the person, every person being created in the image of God, not being treated as a commodity, and that trafficking violates this fundamental truth by reducing people to objects for sale. The dignity of work and rights and responsibilities, right? All people have the right to life, liberty, and just working conditions. Trafficking strips victims of these rights, and we are called to uphold and protect them. The preferential option for the poor. Trafficking preys on those in poverty, crisis, or displacement, and CST calls us to prioritize the needs of the marginalized and defend those at greatest risk. The full continuum of the pro-life ethic, this continuum that it's in all stages of life, right? Upholding the call for sanctity of individuals, upholding the dignity and rights of every person, and combating human trafficking is a vital part of this continuum, protecting individuals from exploitation, ensuring their freedom and well-being throughout their lives. Care for God's creation in communities devastated by ecological or economic collapse, trafficking often rises. So, encouraging these systems that respect both people and the planet. The call to family, community, and participation. Trafficking often tears family apart and exploits the isolated. And so, in this, CST promotes strong communities where everyone can flourish. And the last, but very much not the least, solidarity, right? We are one human family, and Catholic social teaching urges us to see trafficked persons not as strangers, but as brothers and sisters whose suffering is our shared responsibility. In which Pope Francis really talked a lot on this theme, right? That we as Catholics were called to contribute and combat this issue together. So a few messages from the Holy Father, Francis, one of his more famous quotes was, human trafficking is violence, the violence suffered by every woman and girl is an open wound in the body of Christ, in the body of all humanity, and it is a deep wound that also affects each one of us. Pope Leo gave a reflection this year as his, first year as Pope. On the International Day of Prayer. And one of the quotes that really stuck out to me was these forms of violence are not isolated incidents, but symptoms of a culture that has forgotten how to love as Christ loves. And I think that rings very true, right? When we treat people as commodities, when we exploit the other for our own gain, and all the different situations we see with trafficking, it really is a symptom of our culture that forgets the mercy and the enduring graces of Christ. So in the Catechism of the Church, we have seen this time and time again kind of be reaffirmed and talked about, even many of our previous popes have always kind of condemned human trafficking. But one of the more, prominent definitions here is Catechism forbids acts of enterprises that for any reason lead to the enslavement of human beings to their bought, sold, and exchanged like merchandise in disregard for their personal dignity. So I'll just give we have some great speakers that will give more in-depth detail of the states they pertain to. So I'm just going to give kind of federal definitions here. So human trafficking is the term we hear a lot in the United States, right? Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to induce someone into labor or sexual exploitation. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery, a violation of human rights, a federal crime. And there's an estimate of around 49.6 million people living in situations of trafficking at any given moment in time, and that has been estimated to around 1.1 million in the United States. This comes from the Global Slavery Index, which has yet to be updated, but this is like the latest that we have found. So the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, also known as the TVPA, is pretty much the comprehensive legislation that we see federally in the United States that addresses human trafficking. So it really addressed existing gaps in legal framework by creating new criminal offenses and establishing victim protections. This federal legislation came out in 2000. So last year was the 25th year anniversary. Every few years it gets reintroduced and it kind of it gets signed on and supported bipartisan most of the time. So, and it defines human trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt, bondage, or slavery. You will hear most of the definitions time and time again say force, fraud, or coercion, right? And those are the three things that are needed to be proven when it comes to adult victims. And then when it comes to sex trafficking, it's sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, again, those three words, or in which the person induced to perform an act has not attained 18 years of age. So if there is a minor under the age of 18, it would always be engaging in any commercial sexual exploitation Traditionally, this is considered sex trafficking no matter what, because minors cannot consent. I always like to point out human trafficking versus human smuggling. I think in the media we see and hear different interchange of words when it comes to human trafficking and human smuggling, or I think people often can get confused because of the nature of the words. So again, just human trafficking, use force, fraud, and coercion. You'll hear that again. And it's what we call a crime against the person, right? It does not need to involve transportation across countries and states. It can and often does. And it's that recruitment, harboring, provision, or retaining of a person. Then human smuggling, on the other side, is a consensual relationship. It is a crime against a country or a state, and it does involve the movement across an international border to facilitate unlawful entry. It usually involves a fee, and oftentimes relationships end when the smuggling is complete. That is not to say that there are not situations of human smuggling that have been tainted with human trafficking before, during, or after the smuggling is complete, but it's just important to note that they are two distinct situations by definition. So, industries of concern, you may have heard of these, right? When it comes to sexual exploitation, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Commercial sex, street-based escort, or sometimes pornography production online, live stream abuse, cantinas and bars, online platforms, brothels, strip clubs, and sometimes private residences, hidden trafficking, including domestic servitude that can be combined with sexual exploitation. And then on the other side, labor exploitation. I like to picture it kind of like an umbrella, right? Where we have sexual exploitation and labor exploitation, and then it falls into all these categories. So we have agriculture, farming, you know, fishing, seafood processing, construction, domestic work, hospitality and tourism, packaging plants and such things like that, landscaping, and so on. So some other forms of trafficking that you might hear about that maybe are not so obvious is forced criminality, child soldiering, forced begging, prison labor, marriage trafficking, surrogacy and organ trafficking, which I will not get into, but I would be happy to send information to those that are interested in reading about this. So, personal and community risk factors, pretty general information I'm throwing at you all, but just things to kind of keep in mind, right? Community violence will always increase vulnerability, gang involvement, high crime rates, tension between local communities and policing authorities, under-resourced schools, high dropout rates, and limited opportunities, and lack of safe entertainment or community centers can always kind of increase that susceptibility to vulnerability of trafficking. Social and economic vulnerabilities, weak protection systems, youth over or underemployment, poor community leadership or power structures, the location of universities. If a university is in the heart of a city, that can allow for a lot of people to be close to students, and then by a contradicting factor. The location of a university that is rural might not have a lot of outlets, and so they're more isolated from folks. Unstable home life, right? Lack of safe housing, weak relationship with family. And then some other continued vulnerabilities, discrimination, gender, age, racial discrimination, psychological and health vulnerabilities, right? Histories of abuse or neglect, mental health issues, engagement with risky behaviors, particularly in minors, legal and immigration status, migrants, displaced persons, and lack of protection systems, weak legal protection, lack of awareness, insufficient law enforcement, can really leave victims without support. So, how perpetrators reach individuals, we see popular meeting places, right? Pretty standard bars, malls, parks, area where people gather. Social media, internet, and online dating, that's probably the most common thing that we see now when it comes to trends. Using the internet to reach individuals, gaining trust and exploiting individuals. Peer-to-peer recruitment, we have also seen areas that have large number of people can create breeding grounds for recruitment. Deceptive employment offers, intimate relationships, right? Perpetrators can take advantage of economic instability, and romantic relationships can be common tools of deception. And then lastly, financial instability, taking advantage of in-loan debt, offering jobs that will speed up the payoff process, and so on. So I'll skip that one. So sporting events, I know I'm at time, so I'm trying to two more slides. So when it comes to sporting events, which is why we're all here, right? I think it's important for us to recognize that large scale sporting events like the Super Bowl, which we have this year, the World Cup that we're starting now, and then we have the Olympics next year, it brings an influx of visitors, right? Temporary workers in hotels, perhaps, or around in volunteer areas. it increases cash flow, which can increase vulnerabilities to trafficking. It's not always the connection that trafficking or sporting events equates to human trafficking, right? It does not occur because of the event itself, particularly, but can intensify existing trafficking patterns already present in host communities. Risk factors include increased demand for commercial sex, sometimes in celebratory practices, right? We won the game, let's party and let's, purchase sex. Informal labor markets is probably the most common thing that we have seen, crowded transportation hubs and limited community awareness. So when we think of the challenges around sporting events, what we have seen in the past, particularly as it comes to the World Cup that has happened in other countries, in specifically developing countries, is the lack of, poor working conditions. Investigations into projects for events like the World Cup in Qatar, which was the last World Cup, documented significant exploitation, harsh labor working conditions, limited legal protections, and little resources for abuse during the construction of the stadium. Migrant workers, especially from South Asia and Africa for the Qatar World Cup, faced exploitative practice conditions with like high recruitment fees, withheld passports, wage theft, and then displacement and community impact. A lot of times, infrastructure projects or these big global events where there's a lot of influx into communities that might have not had that tourism can leave people with displacement of lower income residents or with inadequate compensation. And so we've seen this in the past. And so some of the awareness that we're working on for this presentation is just to highlight these things. So we are not claiming that trafficking, particularly that sporting events particularly equate to trafficking, but it can kind of increase that vulnerability. So I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with anyone interested, but I think we should kind of move along to our great speakers that have some more to say. So thank you all.
Thank you, Felicitas, for that presentation. And yeah, please, we'll be happy to share those slides with our attendees tonight. So the bulk of our webinar tonight will focus on what the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey are doing to combat human trafficking in light of the upcoming World Cup, and also in more general terms of what we're doing, because this issue doesn't go away once the major sporting events conclude. So for that, I'd like to turn the next portion of our webinar over to my counterpart, Mr. Eric Failing from the Pennsylvania Catholic Conference. Eric, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Uh, Thanks, Jim. And he called me Mr. Eric Failing. That always worries me a little bit when I hear that. No, Jim is a great guy, been a fantastic partner in all this, as well as Felicitas and everybody else. When we were planning this and we were decided that we wanted to have a legislative speaker come in, and Jim said, "Do you have anybody in Pennsylvania?" There was no hesitation in my mind. I knew exactly who we needed to ask, and that is Senator Chris Dush. I'm not going to talk a lot, but I do think it's important to understand a little bit about the senator's background. First of all, he represents the 25th senatorial district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate him again and thank him for being the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 44, which was unanimously advanced and signed into law in 2023 as Act 39. It ensured that sexually exploited children, human trafficking victims, always have full access to necessary services and support. He's continued to shepherd through high priority and bipartisan anti-human trafficking initiatives during our current legislative session, and really is the instrumental founder of our brand new Pennsylvania bipartisan bi-chamber human trafficking caucus. Senator Dush has been able to pull together in a politically environment that can also, well, regularly be at odds. He's been able to pull really both sides together around this topic. Senator is a retired law enforcement officer, was also instrumental in securing dedicated state budget funding to establish the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General's Human Trafficking Section. And prior to entering the Senate, he served for 6 years as a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives for the 66th Legislative District, covering Jefferson County and municipalities in northern Indiana County, for those who are familiar with the landscape of Pennsylvania. He had enlisted early in his career in the Air Force, held positions as a law enforcement specialist, law enforcement patrolman, flight chief, hostage negotiation team chief, anti-terrorism program manager, and resource protection technical consultant to the U.S. Department of Defense and NASA. He had enlisted with the 193rd Special Operation Wing of the Pennsylvania Air National Guard as a security forces member and received numerous awards in the performance of his duties there. He was deployed in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Noble Eagle, and on the American border in New Mexico. And he also served on staff with Air Force Special Operations Command. He served as the Chief of Information Protection, responsible for safeguarding the classified information programs at the Pennsylvania Air National Guard headquarters and units throughout the Commonwealth. In 2016, he retired from the 193rd as a senior non-commissioned officer. Now, why do I go through that? I was asked to give a quick bio. Senator Dush has lived really a life of service protecting everybody, whether it be in the military, whether it be in law enforcement. And now he finds himself in the role of senator again, reaching out to protect people, this time those enslaved through human trafficking. So thank you very much for joining us, Senator. I'm going to stop talking now and turn the floor over to you.
Eric, thank you for the introduction. And part of what I was doing while I was in the Air Guard, I actually went down and worked the southern border. And one story, a woman, I can't remember if it was Arizona or New Mexico. New Mexico, she'd been working for children and youth, and the Department of Homeland Security had hired her on to process the children who were coming across the line. And what really disturbed me, I met her at the JUST conference. It's a conference of people that work in the anti-human trafficking area. And it made me sick what I heard. She was telling me that she had to call numbers when these little children were coming across the border with phone numbers on a slip of paper. She would call the number, and it was usually either in Denver, Colorado or San Diego. And as soon as the phone was picked up at the other end, the person at the other end would say, "Do you have my little so-and-so?" And she had to put these children on a bus and send them to these individuals. And she says, "In my heart, I know that I'm participating in human trafficking, and I have got to get out of this." If I will say this, if any of you or anybody on your team has the opportunity to go to the JUST conference, Shared Hope International sponsors it. Anywhere between 1,000 and 1,100 people that are working in this space participate, and there are a lot of survivors. If you have somebody who has a heart for this or thinks that they have a heart for this, I would recommend you try to get to be able to participate, because hearing the stories, you cannot unhear them. And if you got the heart for it, sometimes they'll open up to you. And I've been I will say it's both a blessing and a curse to actually listen and hear the stories and the devastation of what these both men and women we've doesn't it crosses all demographic lines. It doesn't matter what social economic status you're in. We've got a judge who, as a young boy, was trafficked by his father, who was a dentist, and he's now a judge. There are people out of one woman out of the Philadelphia area who was one of the Epstein victims, and she came from an upper middle class Jewish family. And then we've got down to the children that have been trafficked by their parents for their drugs. And this is how broad the whole scope of this epidemic really is. And there's a whole lot of space in between. From one young boy was playing Roblox next to his father on two separate computers. Mom walks in and finds that the boy is actually texting what turned out to be a predator on their chat app within Roblox. Dad's thinking he's doing the right thing, spending time with his son. This is there are so many facets to this, and honestly, when it came to the abortion walls back in like the 3rd century, and it was the church that put a stop to those. There was the local priest took his congregation out in Egypt and stood out up at these walls that the people were bringing their children up and putting them on the wall to basically let their children die. It was the church that did that, started tearing down the walls, and that the local priest, held up his bloody hands, my blood for theirs. And that caused two successive Roman emperors to establish laws that gave dignity to the children. And the church needs to be stepping up and stepping into this role, and I am so grateful, so very grateful that the bishops are taking this seriously and that they are working to make this happen, or to help to educate. In the work that I'm doing, we've got three pillars of ours. It's education, identifying victims, and prosecuting traffickers, Johns, restoring the body and soul of the survivors. Like I said, there's so many elements to try and get this scourge addressed. And we're trying, from the legislative side, we're trying to provide tools for the prosecutors, the police officers, so that the prosecutors and the police officers can actually become trauma informed. They get to understand a little bit about what they're dealing with. No little girl, no little boy has it on their list of things to grow up to be as a prostitute. And so there is anybody that's been brought into this, it's been through fraud, coercion, whatever it is, manipulation. And then once they start in the life, the sextortion things that are going on with young boys, especially that are committing suicide because they think they're talking to some hot 17-year-old girl, and they start texting pictures, and turns out to be a 70-some-year-old dude, and then that guy reveals himself and says, "You really want your buddies knowing that you're sending me pictures? You got to start sending me money. You got to send me more pictures. You got to get somebody else involved." Those are the types of things. And the boys are committing suicide. That's the biggest problem with the boys that we're seeing. But as we're talking about what is going on with the events that are coming to Pennsylvania and New Jersey here and over the next several months, our state attorney general, I've been working with him. He's already dialed in with the folks from what was called Operation Dragon Eye, that was working on some major venues earlier. And from the survivors, the people that have actually been rescued as a part of that operation, and others that we know about, these young people, and it's women mostly, but there's also boys, women and girls and boys. They're literally being flown into the areas where these events are occurring. And as the hotels and others have started to become more educated, either because the legislature has said you must educate, or simply because some of the law enforcement is saying, if you're knowingly assisting in participation, we're going to seize your property because it's organized crime. But the hotel industry has started to sit up and take notice, and they're educating their staff on it, which is a good thing. But now, as a result of that, bed and breakfasts and the online reservation of rooms, that's becoming where the predators and the traffickers are starting to divert their product. And that's the way they view their victims as product. Good example of that, one of the survivors that I spoke to, she'd been pulled over. She was with her trafficker, and there were drugs in the car as well. And she was made to take the fall for it because he had other girls that could work, but he was the one that bailed her out. They get their victims to caught up in law enforcement, and then they come and bail them out. They're seen as the savior of these people, and the the things that they do to isolate the folks that they've got caught up in what's called the life within the community. Uh, it's they're experts at manipulation. So our Attorney General Dave Sunday, he, like I said, he has been a strong advocate here in Pennsylvania before he became the Attorney General. We had just gotten the money doubled to when he came in to for the task force or the section within his office devoted towards anti-human trafficking. And he started going around to law enforcement and saying, if I double it again, he said, will it fix the problem? And he's open about it. He says, I got laughed at. And he said, because this thing is so pervasive and there's so many different ways that this is being done, from the familial to the dating kind of, they start, you got young guys that are recruited to date girls and get them hooked into things, put them on an airplane. The next thing they know they're headed someplace where they're taken up into the life, and they feel isolated. They're professionals at what they do, and taking advantage of young people. Just for the sake of possibly allowing for questions, because I quite honestly find there are some some questions that are raised that should be answered, and I can stick around to the end, but I'd like to save a little bit of the time that you've allotted me to allow for those types of questions. And I'll leave it at that for right now, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Jim, I think you're on mute.
Eric, thank you very much. Senator, thank you for your presentation. Now we will go ahead and go across the Delaware to the New Jersey side and introduce two individuals who are actively engaged in the work of combating human trafficking here in the state of New Jersey and have been particularly focused for the past several months or year, I would say, on the upcoming World Cup events, and we're honored to have them. I would like to introduce our first panelist from New Jersey, an individual who I've had the honor of working with on human trafficking issues for the past 10 years. And, we've done a couple of events together, and I think it's, a real gift that she's here tonight to share her expertise with us. So I'd like to introduce Mrs. Kathleen Fries. She is the program and training coordinator for the New Jersey Division of Criminal Justice. Kathleen joined the Office of the Attorney General Division of Criminal Justice in 2005 as the program and training coordinator for the New Jersey Human Trafficking and Sexual Violence Unit. In her role, she assists Deputy Attorney General and detectives in building a coordinated effort between law enforcement and service providers in identification and assistance of human trafficking survivors. Ms. Fries has also developed and continues to conduct training courses, conferences, and on-site workshops, as well as statewide train-the-trainer trainings on human trafficking for state and local law enforcement and attorneys that are victim-centered and trauma-informed. She has modified additional human trafficking training programs to bring her relevant human trafficking awareness to a number of professions and disciplines, including first aid and EMS, youth programs, hospitality, and casinos, college students, emergency management personnel, and many others, including the faith community here in New Jersey. You've helped train us as well. Kathleen is a certified trainer for the New Jersey Police Academies and serves as a commissioner on the New Jersey Commission of Human Trafficking. Ms. Fries also worked on behalf of the Attorney General to create and launch an ongoing human trafficking awareness campaign. Kathleen was honored in 2014 as New Jersey Child Abuse Prevention Award and the New Jersey Attorney General Excellence Award for Victims Justice Crime Victims' Rights Award. Ms. Fries was also honored as a recipient of the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking 2019 Advocacy Champion Award. That was a mouthful, but Kathy, it's a pleasure to have you, and the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. And it is an honor to be working with you once again. And to all of you today, I've been doing this work for over 20 years, since 2005. And it always amazes me how we all seem to meet up again, if you will. Once you sort of get into this kind of work, it's hard to leave it. And it's just a pleasure to be with such like-minded folks who want to do the right thing in regards to this horrendous thing that has been happening really forever, right? Human trafficking is not new. The term human trafficking is, I guess, about 25 years old or so. But slavery in some way, shape, or form, labor trafficking, sex trafficking has been around for as far back as I can research myself. So again, thank you, and thank you, USCCB, for this opportunity to speak about New Jersey and human trafficking and what we're doing here in New Jersey to prepare. We had a great start off with Felicitas and Senator Dush to have that basic background understanding with that excellent HT overview. So as we know, the matches will start June 13th and end in July 19th. Can't be soon enough for me. I'm sorry, I went off script a little bit, but it has really been quite a ride so far. I had the I worked this job, of course, during our last Super Bowl, which was 2013. Well, the year before was 2013. And just like the World Cup and any other major event, it really does take a village. We had people coming from around the world, but not around the world, I'm sorry, around the country, who worked for at every Super Bowl to go to that location, to that city. For New Jersey, it's always the state, and deliver outreach for missing kids, and they would go around and take photos and share them. We did assemblies at schools so that kids who watch the Super Bowl along with their moms and dads and everyone else, so that they were aware. It was an opportunity for us to kind of jump on that excitement, if you will, about the event and take advantage of it and introduce. So that was, again, 2013. We've come a long way. We've all progressed. Every state, the country has progressed a lot, and we've made a lot of cases, successful prosecutions. More importantly, have assisted many, not enough, but many survivors who have been recovered. We know always that the amount of cases and the amount of survivors will never be a true number of the amount that is out there. So we must keep plugging along. Okay, so July 19th will be the end. New Jersey is going to host 8 of these World Cup matches, and 6 additional matches will be held in Philadelphia. And I believe, as maybe Jim mentioned, these events are expected to bring more than 1 million visitors to the region. So again, although we had the experience of preparing for the Super Bowl, someone said that this is the Super Bowl on steroids, right? We can't even fathom what this is going to, the kind of impact that this is going to have in many ways. When we first, a couple of years ago, when we first started talking about it, my first thought was, yes, increase in demand for sex trafficking, but look at all the opportunities for labor, cheap labor, right? And labor trafficking. Just because of the magnitude of how huge this is and the amount of workers in every way, shape, or forms. And at the time, I was simply just thinking about vendors, right? I mean, you can go to a regular football game or baseball game and be hit with many vendors. So imagine getting areas prepared and built and so forth and so on. So we do have the heightened awareness with law enforcement during these events. And, but of course, we know there's that expectation that with the crowds of this magnitude, traffickers will get opportunistic for sure. But so will we. And we have been, meaning that we will once again take advantage of this heightened attention and spotlight on human trafficking and just run with it and just go everywhere and share the information and get the word out there because people are listening. And I will tell you, a big difference between 2013 and now is people are knocking on the door. The phone's ringing off the hook. The emails are just flowing in every single day. What can we do? Send us some posters, do this, come for a training. That's great. That's the good news, right? That comes out of this. So how are we preparing? We have expanded our human trafficking unit, which consists of prosecutors and detectives, specifically assigned for human trafficking incidences and cases solely. We continue to expand our trainings that we always have done to include agencies that work in and provide protection assistance within communities. And we know that we have to be in the community to fight human trafficking, to address human trafficking, because that's where it happens, right? With community members. So just to give some examples of those, they include the trainers that Jim had mentioned. These are set up within the county prosecutor's office. And the reason that, once again, for New Jersey, every time we do something, it has to be statewide, right? We don't have, Philadelphia, we could, I guess, you could do something separate there, so forth and so on. But everything in New Jersey is statewide. However, we do have 21 county prosecutors' offices. So the struggle over the years was one of the struggles over the years has been to get to the local PDs, because once again, we know this comes from within the community, and who knows the community better than the local PDs. So going through the county prosecutor's office, their main job for us was to provide the venue. We bring everything, but then they can invite representative from each of their local PDs. This way we have the ability to get the word out there to those boots on the ground, really. So that's something that we continue to do. Then, and recently, over several months, we have gotten so many calls for EMS training, hospital training, fire and code enforcers. You know, EMS staff, for example, is a vital group, right? Because they meet individuals where they are. And where they are is typically at their most vulnerable state because of a scene of an accident or a domestic violence situation or sexual assault or any type of emergency situation. So they're already meeting an individual who has been victimized or a victim of an crime or an emergency situation. So having them equipped with the tools to possibly identify potential possible human trafficking activity and or victim survivor is really fairly good. We want them to know that, you know, they already do understand that the injuries that they're addressing have already probably been sustained by some type of criminal violence. And now we're just adding in that possibility of human trafficking as well. We also have spent a lot of time training hotel and casino staff in Atlantic City, where World Cup events happening in and around New Jersey and New York and Philadelphia, and with AC's close proximity and draw, right? They just naturally have that draw. They too wanted to be best prepared. And that training, as well as any hotel training we do or any type of industry like that, goes from security personnel all the way to housekeeping and everyone in between. And quite honestly, I think housekeeping is maintenance number one, because if anybody's going to get to see something, odds are it will be folks doing those types of jobs. And these outpouring of requests have been really encouraging because it helps us know that businesses and agencies are more aware and more informed to know and to understand the impact that human trafficking has and can have in our communities. Last week, I got a call from a standalone hotel on the Camden waterfront, right across from where the some of the matches will be held, to their credit. And just the other day, I received an email from a tourist attraction, a really small tourist attraction in the Atlantic City area. And the gentleman who emailed me said that him and his wife run this tourist attraction. And they said, you know, they've been listening to this World Cup coming, and they saw that we had posters, and could we send them some because they would like to put them in the restroom. Now, I realize that might sound like a small thing, but we are ecstatic when we get those kinds of calls, right? Because anyone can be a lifesaver. So we also started an initiative within the county jails because we know that HT victims, unfortunately, can be caught up in the criminal justice system. So having the jail staff trained will help them to better identify who actually may be a victim instead of the criminal that they've been, as the criminal they've been charged as. In 2024, we launched a public awareness campaign that enlists the public help by placing posters in English and Spanish in public areas, including public restrooms. a rare place where human trafficking victims can sometimes at least be alone. Offering contact number and or a QR code victims can use to find help. And it also gives residents a way to report that they suspect human trafficking. In fact, the Attorney General Stalls campaign resulted in posters with information for survivors, including where to contact on the stalls of every bathroom in MetLife Stadium. While human trafficking has been an enduring, unfortunately, societal problem, law enforcement has increasingly incorporated the experiences and perspective of survivors into how it approaches this issue, leading to a greater understanding of the prevalence of human trafficking and the trauma that it inflicts on victims. Please know that all our trainings and information that we share on human trafficking have and always will be victim-centered and trauma-informed. Otherwise, we would have no valid information to share. I mean, that's where it comes from. Yeah, a training cannot be accurate or comprehensive without the input of those who have experienced it. As mentioned before, both DCJ and the New Jersey State Police have dedicated human trafficking units to focus on this work. And according to statistics from the Office of Justice data, the number of defendants charged with human trafficking related offenses has steadily risen, going from 8 in 2023 to 14 in 2024 to 21 in 2025. We already know that 2026 will surpass that last number. And for anyone who's thinking that the numbers are low, they are low. But we are, again, just forging forward, and we're continuing to train and to educate and to identify human trafficking victims and hopefully be able to recover and be able to offer them the assistance that they need, right? That's the number one goal. After that, we hopefully can prosecute the criminal and put him or her behind bars for as long as we can. I'm happy to say that we have recently had some great sentences passed down. The last one was 60 years. One before that was 50 years, and we had 40 years. So, you know, these are triumphs for us to put them away. However, we do know that that doesn't stop human trafficking, right? It just takes that business away from that individual. So we have to, we realize that we can't prosecute our way out of human trafficking. It goes much, much deeper than that. So in 2025, we conducted over 50 human trafficking awareness and training events, also partnering with Covenant House, which is our New Jersey service provider, and through a private grant to do a pilot program to screen youths for, and this is really exciting, to screen youth for human trafficking and to connect potential survivors with services and to provide an opportunity for a prosecutor-led diversion program for youth who have been arrested for nonviolent offenses. This is hugely important because evidence-based research tells us that many youth end up in the criminal justice system due to crimes relating to their trafficking experience. DCJ Human Trafficking Unit has also trained jail staff across the state. We already talked about that so that they can be connected with service providers. The World Cup will bring increased work in hotels, restaurants, transportation, construction, other industries, right? That employ vulnerable workers, that employ any type of cheap labor that they possibly can. New Jersey Department of Labor partnered with other state agencies and key stakeholders to ensure workers know their rights and businesses understand their responsibilities. Individuals and businesses both need to understand the difference between labor exploitation and labor trafficking. New Jersey Department of Labor has launched a one-stop resource for workers and businesses in New Jersey on the New Jersey labor laws. And I did add some of this information in the chat, and we'll put that out to all of you. So people often ask, right, what do I do if we see a potential sign of human trafficking? First of all, we have to remember you're never going to be 100% sure. Never. Law enforcement, never 100% sure. The people who claim to be experts at human trafficking can never be 100% sure at the get-go. You just can't. It takes time. We're talking about individuals, human beings who have been traumatized beyond anything that we can possibly ever comprehend. And it takes time. It takes time to get through that, to go through that, if and when they want to. I was recently at a conference and they had several survivors speaking, and one of the survivors said, there's always something that sticks with you, right? And he said, you have to learn how to respect the no. And that's so true, right? As much as we want to help and we want to do things, we have to meet people where they are and when they're ready. So what now if you believe that you have identified? So in New Jersey, first, as always, we always say follow your agency protocol, right? If that doesn't apply to you or where you work, then anyone at any time can call the New Jersey Human Trafficking Tip Line. And that is staffed at the State Police Operations and Intelligence Center. And when you make that call, it can be anonymous, first of all, because we understand it can be intimidating doing that, because you're always going to be thinking, well, we don't really know, I'm not really sure. Again, that's okay. They will disperse that information to the appropriate law enforcement agency, and then they will do whatever investigation that they need to do to find out what is going on. Another hugely important resource option that we have that started in 2019, the Office of the Attorney General created a grant to fund a statewide human trafficking victim service provider. Now, we have a lot of wonderful, amazing victim service providers in this area. And sometimes, many law enforcement officers already have a very good relationship built with some service providers, but some do not. So to fill in all of those gaps, we designated Covenant House of New Jersey as the service provider for the state, anywhere in the state, 24/7. And again, we'll share that number. This resource is just another option, right, for you or someone you know who is a victim or a survivor. They can assist human trafficking victims or survivors of any age, regardless of the type of trafficking that's involved, including past or present human trafficking experience, and both domestic and foreign nationals. They can provide case planning, transportation, documents, particularly for a foreign national whose trafficker has taken their document away from them, right? And so for that victim, they believe that they've taken their rights to anything, even to exist where they are. So that's a very important piece to providing a resource to an individual who feels like they have nothing left in their life. Housing, basic needs, law enforcement support if they want it. Not every victim survivor of human trafficking wants to work with law enforcement. They just want help and move on. And that is absolutely perfectly fine. Safety planning, relocation, referrals for legal services, and they have Spanish language therapy, which has been hugely important most recently. This goes without saying, but we always say it. If you are ever in a situation that appears emergent or dangerous, you call 911, right? Safety comes first for both you and a potential victim. So I know that people on the call, or and anytime we talk to groups, they want to know, what can I do? How can I help? And I always feel, you're not going to like the answer, but because it's really simple. Not saying it's easy to do, but it's simple. It's awareness and education. We need to continue that awareness and education, because if you understand how to stay safe, if you understand how to help someone else stay safe, or recognize signs that creates a vulnerability in a person that would make them an easier target for traffickers, because that's what traffickers look for. The most vulnerable are the easiest targets for traffickers. And really, until we can wipe out vulnerability factors such as homelessness, poverty, substance abuse, etc., awareness is what we have. It's the only thing that can help prevent someone or someone from being victimized. Understanding and knowing the vulnerabilities. And I know some people have a hard time with human trafficking, in that they feel they can't connect to it. It's like foreign, or it's a mystery, or it's not. It's just yet another way of how people are being victimized. And if you don't think that you can relate to it, just understand that you, as well as everyone else in this world, have been or will be vulnerable at some point in their lives. It could be for 2 minutes, it could be for 2 months, but it does happen. So that is it. And I thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Kathy. As always, excellent job, and thank you for all of that information. I just want to take this as an opportunity, because that's so much information. I think back to one of my college professors who said, unfortunately, tonight we're in this class, we're going to be feeling like we're drinking from a fire hydrant. So that was so much information, so much helpful information. So I want to take this opportunity to share with everyone that we are recording this session. We'll share that link to the recording in the coming days with all the participants, as well as share it out with our network. I also want to just notify everyone that in the chat, I put all the tip lines, the websites for both New Jersey and Pennsylvania that have been shared tonight. So feel free to write down that information and use it, and so it's there, so as a resource. Our next presenter is Teresa Flores. But Teresa, before we get on to you, we do have one additional guest who just hopped on, and I would like to give him some time because he is currently serving on the front lines of the security efforts for human trafficking here in New Jersey and trying to combat it. He's also a good friend of mine, and he made every effort this week with all the work he's doing, preparing for the human trafficking, to join us tonight. And I think he can add a special a note on the importance of faith communities in this work because that is one of his primary responsibilities. So I would like to, at this time, introduce Detective Izzy Chaudhry from the New Jersey Department of Homeland Security and Preparedness. I have his brief bio here, but I want to bring him up on screen. Detective, how are you doing today? I see you're driving, hopefully safely. So thank you for joining us. You're on mute, but just real quick, I want to introduce you, and I think the information you can share about the important role the faith communities play in these efforts is important for people to hear. So, Detective Chaudhry is currently a detective sergeant with the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness with almost 19 years of experience and serves as the College and University Public Safety Association Liaison, New York Police Department Intelligence Bureau Liaison, Bias Crimes Officer, NYPD Counterterrorism Liaison, Military Liaison, and statewide coordinator of Interfaith Outreach and Interfaith Advisory Council. He graduated from Rutgers University with a Bachelor of the Arts degree in Political Science and History and is pursuing his Master's in Public Administration and National Security at the American Military University. He served in the United States Air Force as an enlisted member and an intelligence officer and is fluent in Urdu, Punjabi, and Hindi. He also is an instructor for Understanding Islam, Counterterrorism Level 1, and Understanding Sikhism. So, Detective Chaudhry, thank you so much again for making some time to be with us tonight. I know how busy you are and truly grateful. So, if you could just add a couple of comments, brief comments on the importance the faith community plays in your work and these efforts, and what we can do to work with your agency to combat human trafficking and other security concerns from around the state would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
James, thank you, my friend. Always a pleasure and more than happy to be here, regardless of, all the things that are going on. I think it's very important you actually put this together for both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So really appreciate it. But I just wanted to make a comment with the senator. Great move on joining the Air Force. So really appreciate that. Best experience I ever had in my life. So I love being in the Air Force. But that being said, like James mentioned, we in New Jersey take faith-based outreach very seriously. And it's very important. I truly believe that faith leaders are actually community leaders and have a lot of influence within the community. So when we work with the faith-based leaders, we're able to get out messages that are important. And this particular one is a priority for the Attorney General, Jen Davenport, of getting that awareness out, preventing human trafficking becoming a real big issue, especially during the FIFA World Cup. And you guys know that, all eyes are on us during this time period, both between New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, with the World Cup being here. Not just the World Cup, the 8 games, 6 games in Pennsylvania, but the actual final game being in New Jersey. And of course, Kathleen, who's certainly the more subject matter expert on human trafficking, provided a lot of more in depth in terms of that awareness to law enforcement, the Human Trafficking Task Force between the Attorney General's office and the New Jersey State Police. And I was a big part of when the Super Bowl happened, so I do have some good insight on that. This being the case with FIFA, 10 times harder, right? A lot more games, a lot more people coming up. You have over 6 billion people that are going to eventually watch it. And that's going to bring in that element of human trafficking. So Kathleen kind of, went over all the law enforcement awareness, but it's very important, especially with the faith-based community, and have that education to the people, to the communities themselves. So particularly focus on that those vulnerable communities. What we did using in the Interfaith Advisory Council which is the largest faith-based program in the entire country. We have over 6,000 members spanning all 21 counties, all religious groups, all ethnic groups as well. We put together a program for human trafficking awareness, which also includes the drug trends that are coming, right? So a lot of the times, human trafficking and narcotics kind of go hand in hand. So the reason I'm actually driving is I'm coming from Lakewood, New Jersey, where we actually did one this evening, part of a 5-part series. We regionalized it, focusing on the Hispanic community particularly, which we believe is one of the most vulnerable communities for human trafficking. That being said, focusing on Trenton, Lakewood, Middlesex, Union County, and Hudson County. And really being able to expand it out because a lot of these churches are associated with other churches. So the form of getting it out efficiently is working with the big leaderships in all the churches throughout the state of New Jersey. In addition to that, it's a continuation, right? We're not going to just stop, just going to FIFA's over on July 19th. We're going to keep continuing that education and that awareness. So it's great to be here and having these conversations with the faith leaders within the Catholic Conference and all the Catholic Church. Catholic Church is the largest faith-based community here in the state of New Jersey. I can't remember the exact number, James, we talked about the other day, but well over 1 million folks in the state of New Jersey. So even though right now we're being hyper vigilant, we will and we have to continue combating human trafficking here in the state of New Jersey. So that being said, I'm sure James will put my information out there. Anything I can do for anyone, please reach out to me. More than happy to work with everyone. So thank you, James.
Detective, thank you so much. And again, truly appreciate you making the time for us, especially now that we're days away from the first match here in New Jersey. I know how busy you are. Just to clarify, if there are groups out there, especially here in New Jersey, faith communities who are interested in training or any of these talks, is that something that you can offer through the advisory council as long as they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So the program we're doing is actually human trafficking awareness. That's with the Attorney General's office, so some of her colleagues over there. And then with the state police who oversees our tracking on the drugs and trends here in the state of New Jersey, particularly State Police Operation Rise. And then we also have the FBI, who's also coming out to do a program within this program for scolopine, which is another issue going on within the Hispanic community. But to answer your question, absolutely be more than happy to come out and do a training on this particular subject.
Great, great. And we will share your contact information or the best way to contact you if they're interested in that training when we send out the other resources from this webinar. Again, Izzy, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy working with you, and I look forward to talking to you soon. And stay safe and hopefully get some rest at some point through all these activities, okay?
Thanks, James. Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right. Talk to you soon, friend. Bye. All right. Now, thank you everyone for your patience. And now on to our next presenter. And I certainly will say the last, but certainly not least of the group. We are honored to have Miss Teresa Flores from the SOAP Project here with us tonight. Ms. Flores is a licensed social worker and survivor of DMST. She was appointed to the Ohio Attorney General's Human Trafficking Commission in 2009 and has testified before the Ohio House and Senate in support of human trafficking legislation. Her efforts were a major part of the success of these bills being passed into law. Additionally, the Teresa Flores Law was passed in Michigan that eliminates the statute of limitations for children who have been trafficked. She is a lead researcher in mental and physical health problems of over 200 domestic trafficking survivors and has held 13 wellness weekends for over 300 survivors. Ms. Flores has published 5 books and is on the bestseller list and has a very popular TED Talk. So, Teresa, we're honored to have you with us, and I think this is a great way to end our session tonight to discuss what what people can actually do. Because I think we've all, in our planning sessions, we all agreed that we hear this information, we become impassioned by it, we want to do something. And I think you can really help bring that into focus. I know you've been in the Pennsylvania and New Jersey area for the last several months, conducting several outreach events. So the floor is yours. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much for including me in on this conversation. When we're talking about human trafficking, it's so crucial to have a survivor at the table, at least one, because we don't know what they need unless they tell us, right? And me being myself. So, I wanted to start with saying that we have had sexual slavery since biblical times. I think we can all agree with that. But that does not mean that we should be complacent with that. These events like Super Bowl, like World Cup, remind us that we're not doing enough on this issue. I was 40 years old when I first realized I was a human trafficking survivor. That shouldn't be the case. That here I was with a master's degree in counseling, education, and social work, and I had no idea that what had happened to me as a young Catholic girl was called human trafficking. That set a whole bunch of things in motion that were truly divine. And so it started my mission to be able to help find other missing kids and help people, educate people on what the signs are and what can we do about this. For 2 years, I was being trafficked, but I also lived at home. I also went to church. I also went to school. And so there's lots of red flags out there. There's lots of things that we can do, like Kathy said. I started an organization called the SOAP Project. It stands for Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution. So why do we call it SOAP? Why SOAP? Well, we take soaps that are labeled with the National Human Trafficking Hotline number on it. We get volunteers. We get students. Donovan Catholic High School in Toms River labeled 2,000 of these for us, which are going to be going out to all the little tiny motels in Seaside Heights in New Jersey in a couple weeks. I wanted to mobilize people of any age to sit down and do something about trafficking. There's really not a lot that you can do. You can donate money, you can pray about it. Don't go to strip clubs, have conversations. But to bring your family, to be able to label soaps, I have 93-year-old retired nuns that sit around and label soaps. It was a beautiful thing each time that we do it to see people coming together. It makes my heart as a survivor really happy, wishing there would have been something like this when I was being trafficked. And then we give them out free to hotels and motels before big sporting events. Why hotels? Because 80% of all trafficking is happening at hotels and motels. 80%. It's not like we used to see like streetwalkers, right? Now it's online. Now they're being advertised online, and they're being taken to hotels and motels. So the last 2 weeks, we were in New Jersey. We had 3 outreaches in 1 week, and we went to 161 hotels, from Keene University Union to Cherry Hill. And we had, out of 161 hotels, we had all but 10 refuse our information and our stuff. All but 10. That was a 94% success rate. We also give them out missing children's posters. Kids that are missing. We have 1.3 million missing and runaway kids in our country. 1.3 million. Many times those are the kids that are going to be trafficked. Those are the kids that are vulnerable and going to be targeted as well. The senator briefly talked about sextortion and what's happening to our boys. And it is a huge threat. It's the #1 threat to teenagers, especially boys today. It's something that we need to take very seriously. My priest at church here said he buried 6 boys in 6 months from suicide. These kids are going online. They're talking to people they think that they know who they are, and they're being coerced to send sexual images, and then they're being blackmailed. That's the exact same thing that happened to me when I was 15 years old. Before it was called sextortion, before there were the words human trafficking, before there were cell phones, right? And it's still going on today, and now it's rampant. So we take soaps, we mobilize communities, and we go to hotels and motels where these victims are being taken. And then we give out missing children's posters as well. And so we do this around big sporting events a lot of times because we know the demand for sex for sale is going to quadruple during that event. It's not to say the World Cup is bad or the Super Bowl is bad. We've been to 15 Super Bowls. If traffickers are going to be there and taking victims, which they are, we want to be there too. So we have chapters around the country. We have about 25 chapters, and we definitely would like to get some chapters going in Philadelphia and all over Pennsylvania, actually. I've been talking to some people in York and Harrisburg about the really big need to do this in that area as well. And so our chapters continue to do this all year long, which is really amazing. So, but what do we need? What do we need now, right? We know the problem. We know the stats, but what do we need? I need you all to be a sheepdog. I think of these kids as our shepherds, as little sheep, right? But there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. And so I need each and every one of you to be a sheepdog and looking out for these kids, looking for the signs, and say something to them. I don't care if you're wrong and you misjudged it, but what if you were right and you didn't say anything? One thing I always wish is I wish that somebody would have said to me like, "Hey Teresa, are you okay? Something's going on. Can I help you?" It took one waitress, somebody I would never have met in a motel diner, to look at me at 16 years of age after having been bought 20 times in one night, to see me and say, "Can I help you?" And she saved my life just by that simple question. So I need each and every one of you to be a sheepdog, all right? Consider doing a soap outreach. Consider starting a chapter, especially if you're in the Pennsylvania area. Order some soaps. We have makeup remover wipes are our biggest need right now for the high-end hotels. The more we get these labeled, the more we can get them out to the hotels. We also have a conference coming up in upstate New York, in the Finger Lakes, the end of October. You can go on our website and see that. But we're going to be talking about trafficking in the Amish and Mennonite communities, child labor trafficking in the U.S., and what those kind of issues that are going on that people aren't really talking about. So I know I was on a big time crunch here, but we really need to address this sextortion. We need to support our kids more. We need to talk about this in RCIA, right? We need to talk about this. I keep calling it like confirmation, but we need a PSA. I get all these letters keep changing the older I get, so I don't know how you guys keep up with it. But we need to talk about this with our kids, right? We need to talk about this from the pulpit. I have an amazing priest, and he talks about this all the time, every chance he gets, even on Catholic radio. So let's make a big push to talk about this, to get stronger laws. New Jersey and Ohio are great examples of strong laws that are for survivors, like supporting survivors. But also signage is mandatory in hotels in New Jersey. Signage is mandatory, or they get big fines. We need to do that in every single state out there. And so I encourage all the lawmakers to get stricter laws, get laws that are going to support survivors. We have a retreat for male and female survivors every year to help them heal. We need more things like that. We need more help with that. So I'm just going to stop here. And if you guys have a few questions, we could probably do that. But thank you so much for allowing me to be on here, because it helps me find my voice each and every time. Thanks.
Yeah, Senator Dush, I believe you had a comment.
Yes, Teresa, I want to get you on a podcast, number one.
I would love that.
And I would love to get that word out with your soap project. It's outstanding. And you're absolutely right about the legislators, and to the bishops and everybody else out there that are participating. We have in Pennsylvania now the first bipartisan and bicameral anti-human trafficking caucus. We have members from across the aisle and across the building that are working together. And I made it clear when I was first working to get this put together. I said, we can't worry about whose name's on the bill. We can't worry about what party you're in. So we're coming together. We're actually a working caucus. We go through bills and decide, if everybody's unanimous on it, we put our stamp of approval. And it's the nice thing is it's not leadership driven. This is from the bottom up. It's the rank and file. And I'm looking forward to going to the Just Conference with the team that we've put together, because when I went down there 3 years ago, there were 1,100 participants and a whole lot of survivors. I was the only legislator, and I was like a unicorn. Everybody, but we're starting to make some inroads. And for in New Jersey, I would definitely those of you who are on here work to find some people in your legislature who are willing to go to some place like the Just Conference or some of these others that are out there and let people hear the stories, because you can't unhear them. And then, you know what? If they don't have the heart for it, then that's one thing. But quite honestly, it convicts the heart. And if you're one of God's people, if he convicts your heart, and you've got to step up and do something. We need more legislators to do it, because as Teresa, you said, we've got to be trauma informed. We've got to be where I'm more. People are surprised that I'm former law enforcement and corrections, and you're for vacatur, and vacating sentences and allowing people who have been forced to commit crimes as part of being trafficked in and giving the freedom. But I tell folks, listen, we're going to work on this, but I can't make it so big that you can drive a truck through it. But there are a lot of things that we can be working on, and I am so encouraged that the church is stepping up. I'm so grateful, Detective Chaudhry and the task force, that the interfaith task force. Those things, the church has got to be the one that leads the way. Quite honestly, the legislature. Everybody looks to the legislature or the governors or whatever. We're not the answer. The church is the answer in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I do want to welcome back on Detective Chaudhry. He had something he would like to add regarding the sextortion. So I'm going to bring Detective Chaudhry back on. Detective?
Thanks, James. Thank you, Senator. And Teresa, thank you for your courage for coming on and talking about it. So as you were talking, and I'm glad you brought up the sextortion aspect of it, and bringing it out to everyone. So a few months ago, through the Interfaith Advisory Council, we did a presentation on 764 nihilistic violent extremist movement, and it's a trend going on internationally, nationally, and state of New Jersey, where it's probably one of the worst things I've ever seen that these folks are doing to these kids and getting them to do it, and using blackmail as part of that. So what we're doing here in the state of New Jersey, we're going to roll it out very shortly, is that we teamed up with the FBI on sextortion, and our office is going to do the nihilistic violent extremist 764 program, where we're going to roll it out to the entire state of New Jersey education system through our state Department of Education as part of the state curriculum here. And that includes the administrators, the principals, the teachers, the counselors, and the children. And through the Interfaith Advisory Council, we are pushing it out to the parents as well. And that education awareness is very important. This has become a really bad problem, and it's only going to get worse if folks aren't educated about this. And part of that is the indicators of what to look for. So when you were talking about, hey, somebody had asked you early on, or, understood those signs, they would, you would be able to get out sooner. So We are doing that here in the state of New Jersey. I just want you guys to know. And it's a very important thing because this has become a huge issue between 764 and nihilistic violent extremist movement as well as sextortion. So I just wanted to make that comment when you brought it up. I thought it would be important for people to know that we are doing that.
And just to clarify, sextortion isn't the same as human trafficking, but it certainly can lead to it. Many times it does. But a student, or even it doesn't even need to be a minor. An adult can be sextorted, and doesn't mean that they're being trafficked. But the likelihood of it becoming that is very high.
Absolutely. So thanks for bringing that up, Teresa. That's all I had, James. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Detective. Well, we are at 8:01, and I think we've had a lot of valuable information tonight. I want to thank all of our panelists again for joining us. Uh, the information offered by our presenters has been put in the chat, and we will share it as well in our post-webinar email. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for their attendance tonight. Please, keep everyone here in your prayers as the World Cup approaches and as they continue their hard work combating human trafficking. And if you have any questions about any of the information or you'd like any of the resources, please feel free to contact one of our presenters with the information that was presented in the chat. And with that, I'd like to welcome Felicitas back in, who is going to close us out with a prayer. Felicitas?
Yeah, great. It was great to hear everyone's presentations. Really so grateful to be here. So we'll end in a closing prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Loving and merciful God, we thank you for bringing us together today to learn, reflect, and deepen our understanding of the reality of human trafficking. Open our hearts to the suffering of those who have been exploited, abused, and deprived of their God-given dignity. We pray for all survivors of trafficking, grant them healing, hope, strength, and support that they need to rebuild their lives in freedom and peace, and comfort those who continue to suffer in silence and lead them to safety and protection. Guide all those who work to prevent trafficking and support survivors, law enforcement service providers, faith communities, advocates, policymakers. Give them wisdom, courage, and perseverance in their efforts to uphold justice and protect the vulnerable. Help each of us to recognize the dignity of the person created in your image and likeness. Inspire us to be vigilant, compassionate, and committed to building a world where exploitation has no place and where every person can live in freedom. Through the intercession of Saint Josephine Bakhita, who knew the pain of enslavement and the joy of freedom in Christ, may we continue this work with faith, hope, and love. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
And the Father and Holy Spirit. Well, good night, everyone. I hope everyone has a lovely evening, and thanks, Jim and Eric, for this collaboration. It's always great to get together. And I just have to say, I am rooting for Argentina since I'm from there. So I have to we won last year. We're going to win this year, for the World Cup. But hopefully, all goes well. So thanks for all your
All
work,
right.
everyone.
Thank you, Felicitas. Thank you, everyone. Everyone have a safe night, a good night, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank
Bless.
you.
God bless all of you.
Bye, everyone.